Hello, my name's Philippa Waller.
My name is Penelope Waller, and we are two of the directors at 4D Human Being.
And welcome to the 4D Human Being podcast. What's it all about, Pen?
It's all about your personal and professional relationships. It's about your communication skills, how you lead, how you work and build teams, how you are looking after yourself and your well-being, and how you are much more at choice. What do we mean by that?
Well, sometimes we can get a little caught in patterns in life and we can all be a little bit on our automatic pilot. So 4D Human Being is all about helping us get back to choice and being a four-dimensional human being. And your fourth dimension, of course,
is intention. So whether it's about your impact, your leadership style, your team dynamics, whether it's about your well-being, whether it's about your communication or your presentation skills, anything that involves human beings interacting with other human beings, 4D Human Being are here to help.
We're going to take a deep dive and look at some tools, insights, theories that are going to help you go from a 3D human doing to a 4D human being so that you can happen to the world rather than the world simply happening to you.
Hello, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Do you know, Phil, I do have to say that I have made a New Year's resolution to try and make more of an effort to look good on a podcast, but we all seem to be doing them before or after a yoga class. So
can I just say the fact that we're doing yoga class, though, is a testament.
It is.
So, Happy New Year.
Yes, this will be going out on the 2nd of January.
Yes.
So hopefully Christmas was...
Yeah, hopefully Christmas survived. So, in fact, we want to talk about...
Well, sort of. There is a sort of...
Yeah, sort of super segue, or at least a segue. We want to talk about, not just surviving, but thriving, and from a place of 4D Stoicism, a nice mashup of the Senecas, the Marcus Aurelius, and 4D.
All of that.
And it's so about intentionality. So before you press stop on your podcast
you don't have to have studied philosophy to get a lot out of this episode.
And also we use the word stoic in a sort of sense of gritting our teeth and tolerating difficulty.
Well,
it's not that at all.
No, well, I remember years and years ago, do you remember, we did a short course at the School of Life on philosophy.
Alain de Botton.
Oh, it was so good.
Yeah.
It was only sort of 6 to 8 weeks or something.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about philosophy. It just wasn't an area that I had studied at all. And I had real assumptions about what some of these different philosophies were about. And Stoicism, I had an image of people sort of in ancient Greece in sort of Hessian sacks and really...
Yeah, suffering,
giving themselves a really, really hard life. And actually, it's not about that at all. And I think Stoicism needs a sort of a reboot and a reintroduction because it's so wonderful.
Well, let me give this book a quick plug. So, The Stoic Challenge, A Philosopher's Guide to Becoming Tougher, Calmer and More Resilient by William B. Irving. Super, super accessible and absolutely talks to the idea of, as a Stoic, when difficult things come your way, you say to the universe, game on.
Yes.
Let's play. I'm not going to be set back by this. I'm going to meet this and find my way through it. And that I just love. That you're not expecting the plane to not be delayed. You're expecting it to be delayed and you're ready for it. And when everyone else is complaining and cross and angry, you're like, okay.
What's the gift here? What can I learn here? How can I step into this?
Let's play.
And there's so many pieces in there which we'll get onto. Although I will say I'm really going to commit to... I think I am a pretty stoic person.
You really are, especially in airports.
Yeah, it's really a philosophy that I absolutely love and live by, and it's served me very well. Although there are some things I'm going to add into my stoic practice, which we'll talk about. But I will say that I'm going to... In the last couple of weeks of December, Phil, it can be quite hard to be stoic. So last night I was not stoic. I started panicking about gift buying. I was really, if anyone listened to our last episode, I was really sort of hurtling down the last few meters of
just throwing things in the Christmas basket
of the mountain, buying like madness. The New Year, because the betwixtmas, as we
Yes.
call it. So between Christmas and New Year, there's often, not for everyone, but there's often not very much going on. So it's a good chance to kind of step into a bit of self-reflection, a bit of Stoicism, as we're going to talk to. So looking forward to 2026.
Me too. So we're going to talk about both a more resilient or stoic approach to life, and secondly, not making it kind of big mountains to climb every day. But you have, from the 2nd of January, when this goes out, 363 days to make tiny steps. That means by the end of the year, you will be somewhere incredible. So those are the two parts we want to talk about. I'm going to bridge this with Michael Bublé from Christmas, because
who's on repeat play in your house.
Play. So
Love him.
listening to "Have Yourself a Very Merry Christmas." Now, the lyrics.
Michael Bublé is Christmas, really, isn't he?
Basically, he is the modern day St. Nicholas, isn't he? The lyric a number of times in "Have Yourself a Very Merry Christmas" is, "And all your troubles will be far away." and I'm like, I think, Michael, I am going to challenge you on that lyric, because not only will they be not far away for 2026, I'm going to say that over Christmas they weren't that far away. In fact, maybe they came a little bit closer. So I think that lyric is a really good bridge to maybe don't just cross your fingers, sing Michael Bublé and hope that you just won't have any. You just won't have any troubles in the coming year. Actually, it might be better to say all your troubles will be right here by your side. So how are you going to deal with that every day? So how are you going to... But it's true, isn't it? Because it's from the dog pulling at your sock when you're trying to get it on to, you lose a job, or like it's...
I just, as a sidebar, Phil, I don't think we analyse song lyrics anywhere near enough to actually listen to what they're actually saying.
Well, you know what it is, Ben? I'm afraid if I sort of, whether it's feminism or what's expected of masculinity, or anybody, to be fair, if we think about song lyrics and fairy tales, we are not set up to succeed.
It's not real life, is it? Let's be clear. Let's be clear.
Oh goodness. Okay, so
yes, assuming that your troubles will not all be far away in 2026.
Yes, I mean, we really wish that for everyone, definitely. And let's be realistic. So let's start with the opportunity that 4D Stoicism presents to us in a way to live, and we'll talk about what are the kind of tenets of Stoicism.
Well, also, just to start with where it comes from, like Philippa pointed out, I'd really encourage anybody who hasn't to, at least sort of Google it or have a look at it, because there are different theories, if you like, of philosophy and how to live a good life, really. And so Stoicism is one of them. And as you said, Phil,
you feel like maybe in the Western world we've veered a bit more towards hedonism.
We've definitely veered away from it.
We definitely prefer the idea of the sort of bacchanalian sort of party on the hillside where wine is flowing and everyone is just sort of joyous and out there. But actually, that comes with a hangover.
Yes, exactly. And there's various, philosophies that focus on the collective or on the individualistic, and as Philip says, on the pleasure versus on the virtue. There's lots of different ideas which, arose at different times in parts of the world, but obviously the Greek philosophers are the most famous for them. So there are lots of different ways to live. I mean, maybe we'll introduce some more over the coming year, because I do love a bit of philosophy. Yeah. We're going to start with Stoicism, and our listeners will understand why as we go through this, because as you said, it is very 4D.
Very 4D.
And it doesn't mean, as we said, it doesn't mean you live a miserable life. It's for me, it's a lot about responsibility and self-reflection. Yeah. And being awake.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you to go through some of the Stoic practices. And to bridge to that, we'll give an example that actually William B. Irving in his book opens up with, and it really made me think of you, because it's set in an airport. And I spend a lot of time in airports. and the story could have been you. It was the sort of the flight delay, the cancellation, everybody angry, frustrated, complaining. And
going to the system, the other people.
Going to the other people,
staff.
exactly, looking for other people. And then the hotel, the vouchers for the hotel you get given, that wasn't up to scratch. Then complaining about that. So it just rolls and rolls. And if you think about the experience for those people, for their own mind, sort of mentally, nervous system, physically, deeply unpleasant, really difficult. And then the interactions between them. What if someone else gets a better room than you? I mean, so it goes on.
And then also the knock-on effect of I've missed something.
Oh, and then the narrative when you finally get there, but you've missed something or you're late, and the stress that it's put under other people. When you arrive with the narrative, oh, it was a nightmare. That's how you start their Christmas. That's having an impact. So it goes on, the ripple effect. And he very much says, okay, whatever God you believe in or whatever power you believe in, he says the Stoic gods. He doesn't believe that there is a God, but it's a you could think about a coach or a teacher or anybody. Yeah. He thinks game on. He gamifies it. And I think that's such a wonderful way to approach it, because in that moment he's saying, right, I'm going to win this. And I just love that. And also, I think the second thing before I hand over to kind of what are the daily practices, and I've sort of referred to this, but I really want to hammer it home. This is not about trying to be calm through suffering. It's about building up a daily practice so that when these things happen, you don't suffer.
Yeah, that's right.
And the Buddhists...
Well, it's the second arrow, isn't it?
It's the second arrow. The Buddhists would talk to this. You can't take away the pain or difficulty of the cancelled flight, but you can take away the second arrow of the suffering. And so Stoicism
which is what you self-inflict based on your responses.
And you are responsible for your responses. And we talk about this in managing difficult conversations. As much as someone else is creating a difficulty for you, your main pain it's your own response, ruminating, anxious, worrying, complaining, bitching, gossiping. That's the suffering.
I would say, I mean, this is not a definition of Stoicism, but for me, and let's be clear, none of us are perfect human beings. None of us lived the most sort of virtuous,
not here to be perfect
life.
Human beings, here to be 4D
exactly.
human beings.
And the other thing I would say is that really accept in life that these kind of philosophies and practices tend to, not always, but they tend to come over time in your life based on the experiences you've had and what you've learned. I mean, I certainly wasn't very stoic in my youth.
Ever hopeful, I think.
Yes, and I think there's two reasons for me that if I look back, Stoicism was not really part of my life, and as I've moved forward, it has become so. And that's because of lots of things that have happened in my life. And I think two things for me that underpin it. One is what your expectations are, which I think perhaps for some of us, not all of us, depending on what we've sort of been brought into in terms of our family system when we're younger. But for me, the expectations shift over the period of our life. Very much thought the fairy tale was going to happen to me, and the things like divorce.
Did it not, Pen?
Well, in some ways it did. But I think our expectations shift. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, which is the really, really big thing, which is really about what 4D has done for my life, is we start pulling the responsibility and the self-reflection back to ourselves.
Well, we hope we do.
Yeah, we hope we do. So
some people do.
Yeah, some people do. But for me, those are the two things that have really shifted how I see the world,
you can
and how I can more often respond to the world is what are my expectations and what is my own responsibility in things. Yeah. So please don't imagine you have to suddenly, after this podcast, be a perfect stoic human being.
It takes time. And of course, we're all human. This reminds me, in the spring of this year, we'll have a new series out on 4D On Demand, Managing Difficult Conversations. And I've literally just been editing the video of Matt doing the responsibility game.
Oh, nice.
Where the analogy would be a tennis match. Yeah. And are you taking responsibility for the whole court, just your side of the court, or none of it? Not even that. But that idea of you are 50% responsible for every relationship, and you are 100% responsible for yourself. Yeah. And you know what? For anybody who likes control, that's the place to put your want for control, because you really can control that. Yeah. There's no point trying to control their game, but if you really like control, pop it there, because you'll be much more satisfied. Yeah. Okay, Pen, practices.
Yes. So 3 of these that I think I do, and there's one that I've noted I'm going to add into my practice. So first one is self-reflection, which, again, we always say this. We say this to clients when we're talking about even working with difficult cultures, difficult situations, difficult teams, whatever might be going on in a system or organisation. We will always say, look, a big part of our messaging and what we're going to get the participants or delegates to do is they've got to pull it back to themselves. So yes, difficult things might be going on out there in the world or in the organisation. What can we control?
Well, even feelings that feel justified.
Yeah.
That someone's been rude to you or they've let you down,
Yeah.
and you feel justified in your anger, and your anger is yours.
Yeah, and Stoicism starts with what can you control?
Yeah.
Because a lot of the pain is ruminating and focusing on stuff, of course, that we can't control. So the very first one is self-reflection. Now, there's a number of ways to do that. I mean, journaling is a very sort of...
Therapy, I could highly recommend.
Therapy is a very good one. You can have sort of smaller practices as well. I mean, we use a tool called the neural reframe in lots of our work, which is really about catching your thoughts when they might be negative and reframing them to think about, well, what's been useful here? What have I learned? What was I pleased with? That, for me, is a really good way to self-reflect.
It's a game changer, the reframe.
Yeah.
You know, they've done work on incidences or trauma, and it's the narrative, it's the framing that really changes your life experience, not always the event. It's amazing.
And the airport one is a really good example for it, because if I think about days gone by, as you say, I spend a lot of time in airports. You know, not always the best if it's, 2 a.m. and the flight's been cancelled. But of course, now I think, maybe because of experience, love the airline staff, do their best, not easy situations. But now I think, what can I do to make sure that this is the least inconvenient for me that it possibly can? And really what's happened, what's been detrimental, like maybe I've missed a day of whatever trip I was going on, or so really reflecting on what's the bad stuff here. And the other thing as well, which you mentioned earlier, is of course very often I'm travelling back and forth to see kids, get kids, with kids, and of course I want them to have the best experience possible.
What a lovely thing to reflect on.
Why do they need to be stressed because I've missed a flight?
Do you know what that really makes? I've mentioned this before. It really makes me think of a moment in an airport where a couple were fighting because arguing at the security because one of them had not put the laptop in the right bag. And that's their holiday. This is the beginning of their holiday, and I think I've mentioned before. Tom had only very recently died, so I was really alert to these moments,
to the experience you're creating,
to the experience you're creating, and also couples and having your partner with you, and that moment for me really encapsulates the irritation that one of them felt about the expectation not being exactly what they thought it would be. But then the ripple effect, as you say, that now that's got to be dealt with and managed. And 5 seconds of where is that laptop?
Yeah.
Let me check.
Yeah.
And getting that intentional self driving the bus. Imagine then what would have then rippled out into the airport terminal.
Yeah. Yeah. And it
saves you so much time having to repair.
Totally. And so much of this comes back to self-reflection and self-control. So much of it. So that's the first one, self-reflection. The second one is it Premeditatio malorum?
Very good, Pen.
Yeah.
I think the Harry Potter in you.
I know.
The Hermione
Get my little
wand out. Yeah.
So what that means?
Premeditatio malorum.
Yeah. So premeditating on literally evils. What it means is, and we've spoken about this before in terms of defensive pessimism. Which what it means is preparing yourself for difficulties and things that could go wrong. So reflecting on, what's the worst case that could happen here? Or what if I did miss my flight? And for me, what this does is it kind of prepares your nervous system.
Well, you know what
so that you're ready.
You know what the absolute classic, and I experience this week on week. If I drive to a dance lesson, depending on my schedule, particular times of day, going through the town.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's more traffic.
Yeah.
So when I have the presence of mind, my Stoic 4D intentional self is switched on, I'll always give myself 10 more minutes.
Yeah.
Because that queue of traffic. Now, that's fine. That's a sort of theory, and you could look at that and go, that makes sense. The difference in the experience when you're sitting in that queue of traffic thinking, another 10 minutes of my podcast, I've got plenty of time, I left it. Now, I mean, again, we know this in theory, but it's actually really coming back to not just knowing it rationally, that makes sense because there's going to be more traffic, but really being a friend to your own future self and giving yourself a much better experience. word from us at 4D Human Being. If you're enjoying the show, please do click follow so that you can have the 4D Human Being podcast instantly in your feed. And we'd love it if you liked and reviewed us. Let us know what you think.
Please do think of one or two people that you could share the 4D Human Being podcast with. Somebody who would really benefit from the content you're listening to right now. Back to the show. Cento per. But the only thing I would say, and which is one of the reasons that I know I'm a Stoic, is I take this one to the extreme, Phil. I mean, I take
Well, you always
to...
assume there's going to be a traffic jam.
So my kids the other day, because they're old enough now to travel independently, and I got a friend to take them to the airport. They were in Italy. And of course, I do the Premeditatio malorum of what if they miss the school bus? What if there's traffic? What if there's...
Yeah.
So
they took their sleeping bags.
So I factored all of these things in for the pickup time to get to the airport. And my daughter called me from the airport in Milan and said, "Mummy, the gate's not even up yet. We've got 3 hours."
3 hours.
And I said,
which for a teenager is a lifetime.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
And I said, "I'm really, really sorry, sweetheart. But the upside is my nervous system's in check."
Mummy's calm. Exactly. Mummy's not suffering. Yeah.
So one can take it a bit too far. Yeah. But if you know about yourself, that going back to that self-reflection, self-control, intention and choice in responses, if you know that if unexpected difficult things happen, the nervous system is going to be shot to bits. This Premeditatio malorum is a really good technique.
I'm going to add,
ready for anything.
I'm going to add one in case you still have family events coming up in the post-Betwixtmas in the new year. This comes up a lot in coaching and therapy. Here's a question. When someone's close to you says something annoying or does their usual little jibe or dig, and you're furious, you're cross, here's a question. Are you surprised? And if you...
It's such a good
question. And actually...
Goes back to expectation.
Everybody I've ever asked that question says, no, I wasn't. So no, I'm not surprised. So then you say, okay, well, if you're not surprised, then you must on some level have known that would happen. Yes. So therefore, why are you annoyed about it? It's like saying, I know the sun will rise. Oh, how annoying. It's just risen again. You know it's going to happen. And for me, that was a real game changer. When you start knowing, that's how they behave. So if you think about your work, if you think about going back to work, your work colleague who doesn't reply to your emails quick enough for you.
Premeditatio malorum.
Like, are you surprised? No. Then why are you annoyed?
Exactly.
I just love that so much. Premeditatio malorum. Print that on a t-shirt.
This is going to be my new phrase for 2026.
Love it. Third thing. Perspectives. This is very 4D, and actually this really speaks to spiral dynamics second tier systems thinking. Are you stuck in the old me tunnel?
Yeah. What view are you taking? What view are you taking, both in terms of sort of horizontally? So are you looking from your perspective, or are you looking around you? But also in terms of vertically, like how big and broad is your perspective? So yes, perspective, the view from above, or the view from all around. We would also say
and we often talk about your intentional self zooming up like a periscope or a drone, and looking down on a situation. And we do there's a lot of these pieces of work in the Managing Difficult Conversations series on 4D On Demand coming up soon. I think that's one for everyone. I think that's just a gift that we'll keep on giving. And so talk about zooming up and getting that big picture, which does so much for you, because when we're caught in our own irritation, we go into fight or flight, which quite naturally narrows our focus, because you are quite literally when you're in fight or flight, your whole system is going into a tunnel of where's the danger? Do I need to run away or kill it? So you literally, your eyes and brain are narrowing. So we have to really pull up multi-perspective. We go, what's actually going on here? What might be going on for that person? What are they thinking? Yeah. Or, with the family members that irritate you, to notice that it's unconscious, it's a pattern, it's how they are.
Totally.
It's not that they woke up this morning thinking, I'm going to irritate Brenda this morning.
Exactly, Phil. And if the phrase comes into your head, it's not fair, this isn't fair, that's a really good warning sign that you are not practicing Stoicism, and that one of the reasons for that is probably that your perspective is quite narrow, because we cannot say, let's imagine that you're zooming right out and you're seeing like Earth in the universe, or even further than that. The phrase "it's not fair" becomes quite redundant.
Do you know what? I mean, I know we've mentioned this before, but it's such a good place to mention it again. Look, justice is important. It's not that there's not a place for justice and doing the right thing and having a voice for other people who don't have a voice. Like, that is definitely what a wonderful commitment to make for this year. But the idea that life should be fair and that's sort of what we're striving to get to, because it's such a difficult concept, because fair for the person who hasn't got back to you on email is being left alone to do things in their own time. That's fair.
Yeah.
For you, what's fair is they get back to me immediately that I write to them. Now, they can never meet.
No.
So that's why we need the multi-perspectives to pull up. The idea of what's fair usually is our perspective.
And even if it's not, I mean, even if we can say there's something that is fair based on a sort of a universal moral judgment, that's fine and that's true, and absolutely our justice system should strive for that, as should our culture and society. And I think what Stoicism would say is it's a very difficult place to live from if your expectations are that other people in the system must always be fair. It's just going to be tough, because it's not. It doesn't work like that. So which is why it always pulls it back to the self. Yes, these things are going to happen. Yes, some of them will be unfair. What can I control? So that is perspective. And we would use, like you said, the I, you, we, it map. So taking multiple perspectives, but also pulling up and trying to take a higher perspective.
I want to take a little diversion before we go to the last one, because this feels like the right place to put something that I really liked online that I saw. If we think about that's unfair, or it's not going my way, in terms of the perspectives and some of the feelings that come up from that, I think one of the things that really ties in Stoicism and 4D is to go below the emotion and understand what's happening underneath, so that you can then take some control and act and do something. Because this is some of the things we talked about coming into this podcast. This is not about passively putting up with and just accepting. So there was it's
exactly, Phil, it's active Stoicism, isn't it?
But it's recognising what actually needs to happen here, as opposed to I'm going to go and have a moan about it.
I'm just going to go completely silent and just
or I'm going to
feel annoyed.
Exactly.
That is not what we're talking about.
Exactly. So I really liked something I saw on social media, and it was from a therapist, and I'm just going to go through them very quickly, because I just think they're so important of how things show up, that if you suppress shame, you'll often go to perfectionism so that nobody sees that. And again, this self-reflection, if we can understand that, then we can go, I know what's happening here. It's not because that person hasn't reached my perfection, it's because I can't face not being perfect myself. Your anger will often make you want to be easygoing, but you'll boil inside. And again, your anger is asking you to set a boundary. If you're in overwhelm, you're going to overthinking. You'll do mental gymnastics to try to solve a problem. What you're avoiding is actually feeling what's going on underneath. Your fear becomes control. You'll start micromanaging. So again, if you can face your fear yourself, then you can stop being irritated with other people not doing what you want. If you suppress your boundaries, you'll end up burnt out. So if you're burnt out, the thing you can control is your own boundaries. And if you have insecurities, it will turn to arrogance. So if you find yourself walking around with a puffed up chest, feeling like everyone else is not good enough, then that's something about what you can't face. Now, I've gone through that very quickly, and I'm sure that we'll visit that again. Oh, by the way, jealousy will turn to denigrating and mocking things in other people that you actually yearn for yourself. So if you're annoyed that they just seem to be doing what they want, they're just taking time off, that's often because we feel like we can't. We need some time off. So we'll go through these another time in more detail, because they're so important, but it's a really good moment just to sort of slot them in, and we would call it the emotional messenger. What is that emotion asking you to do? And to take that perspective, that's the vertical, I would call that the vertical perspective, as well as what's going on for other people. So just wanted to slot that in.
And very self-reflective as well.
And it's just patterns. It's just what we've learned. They're just survival strategies to give yourself a break. Okay, number 4.
So this is the one on the list that I feel I probably don't do. And what this is about is it's about rather than looking forward into, what I need to get done today, what I want to buy, what I need to sort out, what might happen next week, all of those things, which is all very, very useful in life. This is about taking time to imagine that you lose things that you already have. And by that, we don't necessarily mean you lose, your favourite teapot or something. It's more like, you might lose the love of somebody, or you might lose your inner peace, or you might lose some of your health. So taking time to think about the things that you have that you might lose. And I don't know if I'm very good at that.
I have a good example of this that really helped me in a difficult moment. This was, I think, maybe a couple of years ago now. And I live rurally, and I'm not the only house that can get, roofs can get leaks.
Yeah.
Just because of how they were built, and maybe we have more rain. Who knows? I'm sure fellow listeners will empathise. I'm sure there's lots of us. And certainly when I talk to roofers, there are lots of it's sorted now, I'm very pleased to say. But a couple of years ago, I had what we would term water ingress. So water coming in.
And other information you never thought you'd have.
Exactly.
There's the gift, Phil. There's the learning.
But it was very stressful because I was on my own with it at that point, and didn't know what to do. I'm not a roofer or a plumber. And I had various people trying to solve it, and nothing was working. So nobody was quite getting to the centre of the problem. And I was getting really upset and stressed about it. And then I just stopped one day, and I imagined the whole house collapsed in rubble, and me sitting on it.
And still worrying about the roof.
that was just it. I was sat on the rubble going,
there's no roof.
There's no roof. What will I do now? And it was like something had kind of cleared.
Yeah.
Because I'd come back to the important thing, which was the human being.
Yeah.
Would I be okay? Yes, of course. And actually, what would you do? You'd, call the insurance, go and stay with you or a friend. Like, all of that is solvable, manageable. Yeah. But it was such an interesting moment of having the most negative visualization of what could happen, and then realizing that you would be there.
Yeah.
You would still be there, you'd be you, and you'd take the next step.
And I think, unfortunately, perhaps, sometimes we need things like that to happen in order to practice this particular element of Stoicism. Because when life is sort of bubbling along quite nicely,
dangerous time,
we don't tend to think about these things.
Well, this is something that...
I would say those are the gifts in the difficult times, of course, because then you have to stop and reflect on, what if I didn't have these people in my life?
You have to stop, and I think that's one of the important things. William Irving, in his book, says that part of our problem is that we take for granted that it should all be going our way.
That's right.
And that we negotiate with the universe to sort of try to bend it to our will, rather than just engaging with it as it is, which is, I think we mentioned before, is what my TED Talk talked about. Like, improv is yes-anding what is, as opposed to fighting for what should be.
Yes. And it's not that we should then sort of sit there all day and think about
sit on a pile of rubble.
How awful life would be if I didn't have a roof over my head, or these people in my life, or whatever might be those valuable things to us. It's taking the time. And for me, having sort of going through the Christmas slightly frantic period, of course, if I take a moment to sit down and think, okay, well, what happens if I haven't defrosted the chicken or the turkey in time, or what happens if I've forgotten to buy the parties, or whatever it might be. Of course, really what's important to me is warmth with the people that I love. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
As long as I've got those two things,
which actually,
I think we'll be fine without parsnips.
That's absolutely right.
Actually, my kids will be pleased without parsnips. They don't love a parsnip, Phil.
That's right. And in fact, exactly. They wouldn't care. But a lot of the philosophers talk about it's the sort of Hamlet moment, isn't it, with the skull, sort of, almost meditating on death. But it's the sort of equivalent of, if the worst happens, what would I really want? I sometimes think about sort of, those sort of Armageddon type movies. And again, that's a sort of negative visualization. What would you do if, the world was going to sort of, as we know it, was going to end? And then you imagine yourself, what would you want? Well, you'd want your loved ones probably around a fire, because you'd want to be warm, and you'd telling a story or making sure that they've got some cover, and like that's what. I mean, it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, isn't it? But sometimes it's useful just to come back to that and think, well, if the Wi-Fi's down, to not go. It's that thing, isn't it, of being cross because there's no Wi-Fi in the aeroplane when you're flying thousands of feet in the air and expecting.
Yes. Exactly. And actually, I don't know if you remember, a few years ago we were staying in a very nice sort of house in Italy, as we so often do. And there was a power cut. There was a terrible storm. There was a power cut. Do you remember?
Yeah, I do.
And so we had, obviously, I mean, my kids were sort of tweens at the time, so I mean that was fairly disastrous in terms of not having any Wi-Fi, but we couldn't really cook anything, and particularly you, for you're such a creative person. I think we had such a laugh because we ended up playing some crazy games.
We lit some candles.
Yeah.
Luckily, we had some candles, and we did animal shapes on the wall.
Oh, that's right.
And then I started telling a ghost story, and of course they were just screaming with sort of terrified delight.
Yeah, which of course we wouldn't.
Which we wouldn't have done.
And that is real Stoicism. Which is, well, how can we meet this situation? And what's the gift here? And of course the gift was that we had candlelight.
Yeah, we were in our own sort of horror movie.
Yeah, exactly. And going back to what you just said, Nasal, of course, one of the Stoic practices is, and I think I might say this wrong, but I think it's moratorium mori, which is thinking about death, which is, I guess, the kind of extreme of thinking about what I might lose, what I might not have in life. And some people really do spend time doing that. Again, that's not necessarily one of the things that I personally do, but I remember hearing Alain de Botton speaking about that once, and that it's kind of weird that we don't actually think about that very much. But again, it's not to make ourselves sad. It's to make ourselves stoic and appreciate what life is and can be.
Yeah, we often think about retirement because we know that's going to happen. So it's no different, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm a big fan of Stoicism.
Big fan. So take a moment and think about, what would be useful in terms of that self-reflection, multi-perspective taking, expecting things to be difficult, and even imagining the very worst. Imagine the worst case scenarios. You go back to work this week,
and what you could lose, what could be sort of negatively different, rather than hoping that things are going to be better.
And then there's two things on that, isn't it? There's gamify it. So how can you find your own phrase for kind of like game on, let's play, and to focus on what you can control. Yeah. And actually, therefore, in our language, the opportunity in every one of those moments is not only to solve the problem, but to take another step towards the person that you want to be.
Well, do you know, one of the things I definitely do,
because none of us want to be the irritated.
That's right. And one of the things I definitely do since doing this work in 4D is, and again, I do not do this all the time.
No, but we're not perfect. We're going to keep remembering we're not perfect human beings.
But when I do, if I catch that moment before I respond to something that's been difficult, what I will think to myself is, what do I want to think about this interaction or this experience tomorrow when I'm looking back on it? How do I want to think about myself in terms of how I responded? And of course, if I get angry or say something I regret, of course it will be unpleasant for me the next day. Yeah. So taking a moment to sort of think about what your future self will think about your response is a very nice self-reflection practice.
Exactly. Co-create yourself with your future self.
Exactly.
That's exactly right. Okay, so before we go, I want to just touch on micro moments. So as you think about the coming year, obviously the fourth dimension in 4D is intention. We talk about, New Year's resolutions and intentions. And then we sort of crash and burn, as we've talked about often when we do a New Year podcast. By sort of February, we're not going to the gym and the donuts are back out. But actually, what this year's been about, and I really have an intention for 2026, is real micro moments. This is going out on the 2nd of January, which means you have 363 days of micro moments. And if you imagine 5 minutes every day of one thing you're going to do more of, less of, or stop doing, intentions do not have to be about doing massive things. They might be about doing small things, doing less, or stop doing things.
Or doing few tiny things more intentionally.
A few tiny things more intentionally every day, and then imagine where you'll be at the end of the year. And I really love that, to really take the pressure off.
Yeah.
And that it might be one of those practices we talked about recently, 5, 10, 15 seconds in the morning to pause, notice, so that you start lengthening, expanding time, as we've talked about. Look that up if you haven't, if you didn't listen to our previous podcast, or taking a moment to pat your dog or whatever it might be. Tiny moments that will start to shift. We always talk about this, don't we? If you think about a ship or a car, or if you are changing by half a degree, this is like dance. If you change by half a degree, you've suddenly hit the perfect position. But it's tiny. And if you do that every time,
Totally. And it's
next Christmas, my friend.
Yes, exactly. And it's a real attitude. I have a client and we spoke, I mean, we didn't specifically reference Stoicism, but we spoke about it in terms of what's the gift? It's like your TEDx talk, Phil. What's the gift that this might bring? And I remember I was on a conversation with him recently. I mean, he's an amazing leader. And I think I can safely say that things were going on inside the company that were the equivalent of your house sort of. There was a lot of difficult things.
Yeah, a lot of change.
And I said, how are things going? And I knew that things were really difficult. And he said, surrounded by gifts, Pen, surrounded by gifts. Just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Okay, I really want to, let's, okay, so that is the real invitation for all of us and everyone listening, is when the proverbial hits the fan, when things get really difficult. It's not gift, it's not the SHIT that hits the fan, it's gifts. The gifts are raining down. I love that.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the 4D Human Being podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.
Do take on board some of the insights, tools and tips, because every time that you try something new to get back to choice, you are making a vote for the you that you want to become. And I love that phrase, Pen.
I do too. And please do share this episode with somebody that you know would really benefit from the lessons and learnings we've been chatting about today.
And of course, if you're interested in more from 4D Human Being, do get in touch. We run workshops, trainings, online, in-person, conference events and keynotes. We've got the 4D On-Demand platform for your whole organisation. And we do have a free Essentials membership where anybody can sign up for absolutely free to access some of our insights, tools and tips. So do get in touch with us if you'd like to hear more. We cannot wait to hear from you and to carry on the conversation.